Coming up tonight, another bloody weekend for police. 3 murders in 24 hours. We have the very latest for you. Rising crime prompts community action from a group of concerned citizens. Plus, bonds and the Bahamas captured in the pages of a new book. Welcome to our News Weekend Edition, and thanks for joining us. I'm Megan Shepard. A busy weekend for police with 3 shootings in 24 hours. Plus, a woman is jailed for falsely accusing a police officer of rape. More on those stories in a moment. But first, Stapleton Gardens Association is warning residents to be on the lookout with reports of an uptick in armed robberies in that community. Bethany McDermott gets us started tonight.
The Stapleton Crime Watch Association is sounding the alarm about an uptick in armed robberies in the neighborhood. Association President Laquelle Johnson says they've seen the gradual increase since December 2021. But she says residents won't sit by and do nothing.
We have had persons, women in particular, whose cars have been stolen on Bethel Avenue. In March, we've had a woman coming home from work, and she was held up by 3 men with what she described as 3 high-powered weapons, not guns. High-powered. We're talking about war. And so they took our vehicle.
The news comes after National Security Minister Wayne Monroe told parliamentarians there has been an increase in serious crimes in the first 5 months of 2022. In combating the issue, Johnson said the association has partnered with Master Creation to make bumper stickers that read, "No firearms in Stapleton," and "Stapleton is a noise-free zone." Glenn Johnson has lived in Stapleton Gardens for more than 20 years. He said in recent times a business has been troubling him with loud music. This, he said, has resulted in health challenges.
At night, I cannot sleep in my bed because the sound goes on from like 9 o'clock until 1, 2, and even 3 o'clock in the mornings. I've had to have doctor's treatment because I developed Bell's palsy because of this noise.
Residents say they've reached out to Area Member of Parliament Mikel Barnaby, but according to this resident, it wasn't successful.
Our MP is out to lunch. So when you out to lunch, they're telling you he ain't in and he's not returning the calls. That is where we stand with this.
The association is advising residents to be vigilant when moving around the community, especially at nights.
We are asking that you check your surroundings. Make sure that you're not being followed. Make sure that if you have somebody at home, you can call ahead. Let them know that you're on your way. Blow your car horn. I'm coming home, to avoid or try to mitigate of you becoming a victim.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
China's increasing role in the Caribbean, part of the recent RF Economic Summit. In fact, you could say it was a stark and blunt look at the geopolitical landscape and the role China plays in the region. John Statildis tackling geopolitics, geoeconomics, and great power threats to global supply chains, noting the Caribbean has been the perfect partner for many of China's development projects.
I don't fault the Chinese one bit. They see so many opportunities to invest here in the Caribbean. We don't see that same level of engagement on the part of the United States and our private institutions or our government in the Caribbean, and for that matter in Latin America more broadly. But we are very much concerned, not only because the Caribbean is so proximate to the United States, but there are very important economic and national security considerations from a completely objective perspective in Washington.
Waterways throughout the Caribbean are essential for trade and supply chain, according to Statildis, who says China is poised to improve its position even more coming out of the COVID pandemic.
We don't know to what extent China will be able to continue to propel its astonishing military growth of the last 30 years, given what zero COVID policies have done to its economy recently. We saw a significant dip in Chinese GDP in the second quarter of this year. I'm not convinced that there's going to be a contraction, although there's talk of this. President Biden has stated publicly that he believes that in 2022, the U.S. will actually outpace China in terms of GDP growth for the year. I think it's too early to tell, frankly.
A distributor for Sun Oil in Long Island says fuel prices there will jump to more than $7 a gallon. The news coming as global inflation continues to drain the pocketbooks of consumers. Owner of Bayside service station in McKinsey's, Mario Cartwright, telling Our News he has been fortunate to keep his prices the lowest on the island for quite some time. But based on current trends, Cartwright saying he won't be able to stave off a price increase much longer.
We never know in advance, but based on the trend, I expect the price here at my business could jump to over $7 sometime later this week. My competitor, Seoul, they're already at $7.94, I believe. We're at $6.84 right now, but that's going to change very soon.
And tell me, is the price that we're seeing right now, is that normal for this island?
No, typically our price runs in the high $5 range, so it's not typical, no.
As for advice for commuters who will have to spend even more on fuel soon, Cartwright says,
I would encourage folks to, budget their money carefully and don't do any unnecessary driving, because fuel affects everything else, the cost of food, etc., etc. So one must use their common sense and spend wisely. And other than that, we just have to weather the storm.
3 murders in the past 24 hours, the latest only hours ago in broad daylight. Also, a woman is behind bars for false rape claims. We will tell you all about it. The world remembers the life and work of the late Pastor Miles Monroe, but now a fitting memorial to the woman who helped him build his global ministry, the late Pastor Ruth Monroe. And later, tales of Ian Fleming's character James Bond and his adventures in the Bahamas. You're watching Our News Weekend Edition.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamik.
You're watching Our News. Welcome back. Another bloody weekend for police. 3 murders in the last 24 hours. The latest happening just hours ago as a 29-year-old male is gunned down in broad daylight, launching a police manhunt for 2 suspects. Our Gene Joseph fills us in.
We're here at AF Adderley, where today another young man lost his life as he came out of a basketball game accosted by 2 men who would fatally shoot him, bringing the weekend's murder count to 3 and the nation's murder count to 60.
Initial reports indicating the victim is 29-year-old Randy Williams. Those initial reports also saying he was ambushed by 2 gunmen who fatally shot him as he was leaving the AF Adderley compound after a game of basketball. His family gathering near the entrance of the school on Blue Road and visibly distraught, waiting for some word from the authorities on the scene. Eventually, police reported to the media.
Our initial investigations indicates that there was a game being played here at the school which was concluded, and the victim was leaving the campus in a vehicle when he was approached by 2 gunmen armed with firearms who discharged those weapons in his direction, hitting him, fatally wounding him.
Police would not confirm if these weekend murders are related, but maintain that they are actively investigating all 3 while also appealing to the public for information.
I note that you may be concerned about the number of shootings that occurred over the weekend. What I want to say is that we are appealing to members of the public who know that their relatives are in possession of these firearms to do the honorable thing, to report them.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Gene Joseph.
Meanwhile, investigators also looking for the killers of 2 men who were gunned down hours apart on Saturday. This incident happening in Pinewood Gardens just before 11 o'clock last night. Police press liaison Superintendent Otley Peters telling Our News on the scene. Officers were called to Pigeon Plum and Ficus Streets after reports of a shooting. Once there, officers found the victim hanging outside of the vehicle.
The particulars at this time that we're looking at is that a couple arrived at a residence, and as they parked, individuals would have came about, and someone shot the driver. The victim ended up succumbing to his wounds. And so we appeal to members of the public who may have seen, heard, or know what happened at this incident to contact their nearest police station.
This weekend's killing spree also included an incident near the Grove around 1 o'clock Saturday. Officers say the victim was reportedly sitting on a porch on East Street opposite Coconut Grove Avenue when a lone gunman approached and shot him several times. Superintendent Peters saying there are no leads in this murder either. For the latest on all of these murders, visit Our News Bahamas on Facebook. A 57-year-old woman sentenced to 2 months in prison after pleading guilty to making a false rape report against a police officer while in custody back in May. That story from Jared Higgs.
Wendy Lewis initially pleaded not guilty, but because she was apologizing while pleading not guilty, Assistant Chief Magistrate Subusola Swain sought clarification on what her plea was. After speaking with an attorney present in court for another matter, Lewis changed her plea to guilty. Police prosecutor Inspector Lincoln McKenzie revealed that Lewis was originally under arrest for threats of harm and claimed that she was raped by an officer at the Wolf Road Police Station in an empty cell. McKenzie says officers from the Central Detective Unit investigated, and surveillance video shows that nobody entered the woman's cell. Lewis was subsequently charged. In court on Friday, the grandmother apologized for making the false report. When asked why she lied, she said she felt bad about being in the cell. Despite her apology, Swain lamented the fact that the report was made against a police officer at a time when public confidence in the police is low. She says the false claim could seriously damage the officer's reputation and bring shame and embarrassment to his family. The Assistant Chief Magistrate said she had no choice but to sentence Lewis to 2 months in prison. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
The judiciary is set to launch another component of its digital recording system with the assistance of the United States Embassy. A digital recording system was first installed in our courts 5 years ago, and today more than 30 magistrates and Supreme Courts in New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Abaco are outfitted with the system. Deputy Registrar Ronaldo Toot explains the newest feature.
We are pleased to announce that we have now upgraded that system to include a speech-to-text feature. What the speech-to-text feature is basically going to do is basically capture the recording and basically kind of transcribe the recording as it receives it once it's uploaded inside the system. So it basically gives like a rough draft transcript that can actually be used kind of soon thereafter a court hearing is concluded. One of the special features about this system is that it's located on channels. So the channels are actually isolated to the individual speaker. So if the magistrate or the judicial officer speaks into that particular microphone, it would actually recognize that that is the actual judge or the presiding magistrate. Similarly, the same thing, the prosecutor and or the defense counsel.
Chief Magistrate Joyanne Ferguson Pratt sees it as an essential part of their work.
With this new feature, speech to text, this will immensely assist the magistrate in the work that he or she does. It's no secret that for about 12 years or so, there have been a consistently decrease in how many stenographers were made available to the magistrate's court. And this is very difficult because when a magistrate is a slave to a pen, then some of the other features of judging becomes very difficult, like watching a witness and his demeanor.
Outgoing president of the University of the Bahamas, Dr. Rodney Smith, did not hold back on sharing some of his setbacks during his tenure. In a recent exclusive with our Sasha Lightbourne, he admits that Hurricane Dorian and the pandemic which followed caused him to miss many of the goals he set.
The Hurricane Dorian set us back. I was disappointed that we were not able to, continue to expand our residential campus in Grand Bahama. But everything tends to work out, to the best in the long run. The pandemic, the 2 years away from campus also held us back from accomplishing a lot of things. we had to refocus our efforts during the pandemic to making sure that students not only had technology available to them, but that all of our faculty members as well had transitioned, and our staff members were working remotely as well. So we had a lot, the focus was completely different.
Dr. Smith's last day at the university is in late July. If you missed the interview, be sure and check it out on the Our News Bahamas Facebook page. Meantime, the Minister for Grand Bahama, Ginger Moxie, says she is enthusiastic about her collab Partnerships for Development unit and the difference it can make. She recently spoke with Our News about it.
We have a capacity to have a population of 250,000 people, so we want families moving there, we want young people moving there because we believe Grand Bahama is going to be the place to be. And so really, we just want everyone to know that you have now a place, you have a unit in a government ministry that is there to support these types of initiatives, programs.
When asked about the kinds of people who may benefit from the unit, Moxie sharing her hope for expanding the orange economy, specifically helping creatives and other entrepreneurs by connecting them to the right resources.
You may have that plan that you've always had and you just didn't know how to make it happen. Well, the collab unit is there to assist because we're going to support those initiatives.
And on the other side of the break, they are calling it Ruth Monroe Family Fun Fest in honor of the late Pastor Ruth Monroe. John Quill Jones and the Connecticut Suns taking on the Chicago Sky in WNBA action last night. A recap coming up next in sports. And later, the British secret agent who has come to the Bahamas on several missions to capture some of the world's greatest villains. We know him as James Bond. There's a new book about those trips here. We've got all the details still to come.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Salute.
For decades, the late Pastor Ruth Monroe dedicated her life to Bahamas Faith Ministries International's Women's and Families Ministries. Nearly 6 years after her untimely death, her memory lives on. In a tribute to her work, BFMI is partnering with the Women of Excellence Ministries Planning Committee to host what they hope to be the annual Ruth Monroe Family Fun Food Fest. Pastor Ruth's sister, Pastor Sheena Pinder, describing the festival as the type of event Pastor Monroe would have fully supported.
She had a gentle and a quiet spirit. She was a very easygoing person. Her personality was very soft and calm. She was kind of like the calming force between she and I as sisters. And but she was a steady, quiet, determined force to be reckoned with. If she made up her mind to do something, and she really felt strongly about it, there was no swaying her from that. The upcoming Family Food Fun Fest is just so fitting to be honoring her because she had so many ideas and wanted to do so much for women. And of course, in order to do all of that, in order to provide all of the activities and events that we would want to have to empower our women and to cause them to be all that they can be, require finances. And so we thought it was fitting to have this event to raise the funds so that we can do what we need to do.
Pastor Ruth Monroe worked to expand BFMI's many ministries along with her husband, the late Dr. Miles Monroe. The couple died along with 7 others in a November 2014 plane crash. Church officials say her passion was working with women and children to create stronger families, hosting events similar to the upcoming Family Festival. Organizers say Family Fun Festival, scheduled for June 25th at the church grounds on Carmichael Road, will include specialty food vendors, a slam dunk contest, and of course, a gospel concert.
We just really want to continue the vision she had established which is to build a strong force of women leaders who will maximize their true potential. We're very excited to be the host of this grand event, and it's really a multi-purpose event, really for the entire community to come and be a part and share in this great event that we have put on, because we know that women are key individuals. They're key in our community and building our community and establishing families, and so we want to make sure that we play our part.
The Bahamas recently becoming the 8th country to join the Pan American Dragon Boat Federation, getting our feet wet in the growing international sport. Corporate sponsors are already taking interest in creating a team of their own for the first dragon boat races set for August. But have you wondered what it takes to create a dragon boat? International Dragon Boat Federation Vice President Matt Smith explains.
Anyone can build a boat. There's an international specification for the design of the boat. This is just to keep them consistent throughout the globe. But if a manufacturer or builder wants to build a boat, then they can get the specifications from the International Federation, and then we just come over, measure it, make sure it's good, and it's approved, and you have your own boat.
Each Dragon Boat team has a minimum of 10 people. At the recent launch and awakening of the Dragon ceremony, Youth, Sports and Culture Minister Mario Boleg saying the Bahamas is always up to the challenge of a new sport.
We know we are good sloop sailors, and so I think the Dragon Boat would just be an addition. Sloop sailing don't go to Olympics, so now our sloop sailors now can move over in the Dragon Boat and get a chance to compete in the Olympic, and I think we'll be perfect at that. So I welcome the Dragon Boat, and I'm looking forward to us dominating the region.
Jonquel Jones and the Connecticut Suns on the hardwood last night, taking a tough loss to the Chicago Sky. Jones weighs in on that defeat in this Sunday Sports Report with Marcellus Hall.
Welcome to your Sunday Sports Check, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Jonquel Jones and her Connecticut Sun, they were in action at home taking on the Chicago Sky during the course of this weekend. Now, Jonquel had been leading her team pretty well. They had been actually sitting in first place in the Eastern Conference. Going into this game, they were 10-3, looking to build on that. Chicago, though, apparently had different ideas. This one goes right down to the wire, but Chicago pulling out the win here. 83-79 ends up being your final score. Taking a look at Jonquel's stats on the evening, she finished up with a slow night for her. 7 points, 14 rebounds, 2 assists. She also had a block in this one, but again, well below her current offensive stats. Expect a little bit more from her, but still, she's looking ready to bounce back as the season continues. The Sun, in case you're wondering, will be back in action again. Their next game comes your way on Wednesday. They take on the Atlanta Dream. Afterwards, though, Jonquel talking with our Sasha Lightman about the game and
I felt like both teams competed. It was kind of like a slugfest. Like we would throw a haymaker, they would throw a haymaker. But I think it was kind of indicative of what playoff basketball is going to be like. Other than the rest, but for the most part, that's what the playoff game is going to be like. So it was good. It was a good learning experience for us. So we'll be better. When you have a good team like Chicago, you have to limit their opportunities. They have so many different people that can influence the game and basically just make stuff happen. So I think that's one of the situations. I think finishing around the rim is another one. Just putting the ball through.
And there it is. That's your check on sports for you here on this Sunday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
And still to come, a look ahead at your weather for the week. The James Bond Bond with the Bahamas is the subject of a new book.
Got size at 6'5". Hi, this is Shamik.
Welcome back to our news. Expect temperatures to heat up well into the summer and rainy season continues. Here's a look now at temperatures in your extended weather forecast. And finally in news tonight, Thunderball, The Spy Who Loved Me, Never Say Never Again, and Casino Royale, all blockbuster James Bond films shot in the Bahamas. The islands are a reoccurring theme in the renowned James Bond franchise, not to mention the cameo appearances and underwater scenes in a few Bond movies. But how deeply are we connected to the story? Writer Simon Frith looks at Bond and the Bahamas in his new book, Filming James Bond in the Bahamas. Our news intern, Taja Longley, tells us more.
The 1965 James Bond Thunderball is one of the first movies shot on location in the Bahamas. It's also a staple destination throughout the franchise. Writer Simon Frith's new book, Filming James Bond in the Bahamas, dives into the relationship between the two and explores how our islands are represented on the big screen.
It looks at all the locations around the Bahamas where the James Bond films were filmed, so all the films above ground and all the films underwater. But the book goes a little bit further than that. It also looks at some of the locations which were used in the books, and the books which were written in the 1950s, and how those locations might have looked back then. So Thunderball and the short story Quantum of Solace.
While the Bahamas is known for its beaches, Frith wants his book to be more than just a map for tourists. He says there's more to the Bahamas than just its waters.
We're also looking at using this book to try and encourage people to come to the Bahamas for reasons other than the beautiful waters and the climate. And if people want to go and see the Bahamas for something else, then within this book there is every single story in existence that people could hope to enjoy.
The Frith book launch party is scheduled for June 16th. Featuring stars from Thunderball like Bahamian musician King Erison. Among the first recipients of copies will be Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism Chester Cooper.
We're looking to have a party for about 110, 120 people, and then we'll be, I think we'll be having Luciana Paluzzi, who will she will present the book to your Deputy Prime Minister, Honourable Chester Cooper.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Taja Longley.
Thanks, Taja, and thank you for joining us for Our News Weekend Edition. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Megan Shepherd. Continue to have a safe and wonderful weekend.